Hi, welcome to the final part of my run through my favourite Doctor Who episodes. So doing the top three today. Just one thing I did when I was making the video yesterday, obviously you may see all this on the same day. I said that City of Death was season 17, it's not, it's 16, sorry about that. So just recapping, Tom Baker's first season, season 12, there's a couple of classic episodes in that. 13 and 14 are his totally awesome, the difficult debate, which is better. 15 is the transition season when the production team changes from Philip Hinchcliffe to Graham Williamson. And then season 16 is the Key to Time. So that's all kind of got a tied-in story arc. Then season 17, which is the one from City of Death, is the one that wasn't completed with the story Sharda because of BBC Action strike. And then his final season, obviously, leads us up to Logopolis when he regenerates. So coming in at number 3 is a great story. Now, I've often said that Doctor Who's like a Sherlock Holmes type character. He lands in a situation or he finds like a case to solve. It could be on a planet, it could be in present day on Earth, wherever. So in this one, he lands in Victorian London and he basically goes full Sherlock Holmes. Tom Baker, he wears a deerstalker hat. So this is the Talons of Weng Chiang, and this is the season end of the 6-parter at the end of season 14. It's absolutely classic. This is Leela's third story. So it comes after the Robots of Death. It's just like a total double whammy. So this is using Sherlock Holmes, also uses Fu Manchu as an influence. And obviously this is something that Baker has done. There's a story called Planet of Evil that uses Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Brain and Morbius, I mentioned that before, that's Frankenstein. Quatermass, The Seeds of Doom, Invasion of Body Snatchers, the what's it called? It's Terror of the Zygons, and so on. So they're taking classic literature, Hammer horror, like there's the image of Fendal later on as well with the skull. Hammer horror, the classic literature, and so on. So this is using the literary cinema reference of Fu Manchu, but he uses a more interesting idea because it explores the idea of the war criminal hiding out. So basically, the Doctor lands in London. There's a guy performing as a magician, a Chinese guy, and he's a servant to Weng Chiang. But that's not actually his real name. His body has disintegrating, or it's kind of been traumatized, and it needs other bodies to regenerate. And his real name is Magnus Greel, and he's a war criminal from the future, and he's hiding out in Victorian London. So this idea of the war criminal hiding is against exploring fascism and the legacy of Nazi Germany. So after World War II, basically they have the Nuremberg trials, and then there's a long period where things get swept under the carpet a bit. People want to move on and they forget about the Holocaust and the criminality and the atrocity. And then there's the Eichmann trial, I think it's 1960, and that brings that back to the attention of people. And then people go looking, more for the Simon Wiesenthal Centre for war criminals. And, the 1976 film Marathon Man has a war criminal in hiding as well, Zal, played by Laurence Olivier. So anyway, so that idea, there's a war criminal hiding out from the future, is a cool one. And basically the Doctor investigates through Victorian London. It also features a giant rat. It's 1977, and those of you who might be aware, from 76, 77, the New Avengers, that also had a story of a giant rat. The rat effect's terrible, and there's a really rubbish cliffhanger with the rat. But when you're a kid, it's great. By this time, he's really good with, he's teamed up with Leela and have got a really good chemistry going. She uses these Janus fawns, and I think it's in this one where he has a go at her because she poisons people to death and doesn't realise how immoral that is. With her Janus fawns. There's a really good character. There's Henry Jago, who runs the local theatre where the magician performs, and there's a character called Professor Lightfoot, and they kind of form a bit of a double act, Jago and Lightfoot, and they're really good. I think the thing I love about this episode is it takes you back to that time in the BBC where it's so cosy. It's shot on video. You've got the studio sets where they're basically building studio interiors and some exteriors, where it's not on location, so it kind of feels like a play. It feels cozy. And then there'll probably be some bit where it is shot on 16mm on location, but I think it's mainly in the studio of the BBC's and in their classic heyday when, Top of the Pops, Blue Peter, Two Ronnies, all this stuff was being made. So it's a really good 6-part of this. And it just finishes, a classic season on a real high. I think the reason I put it so high is just the quality of the writing. Again, it's Robert Holmes, the director's a guy called David Maloney. It's just quality, and it never lets up. Its peak viewing figure was 11.4 million. Its average was 10.5 million views. So again, this era, Tom Baker, incredibly successful. Okay, so we've got to go to numbers 2 and 1. So a few weeks ago, I was kind of cracking on online. Somehow the subject of Doctor Who came up. And this one I'm going to pick, I actually picked as my number 1. But when I sat and thought about it before doing this, I decided to put it number 2. And it's a really tight decision. But the reason is it's a 6-parter. And I like the 6-parters, but we'll come to why the other one was number 1. So it's season 12. Season 12's Tom Baker's first season. It starts off with quite a funky story, Robot. Then it's got a classic, Ark in Space, that nearly, that was definitely in the top 20 or 15. It finishes kind of funnily. It's got the Sontaran Experiment, which is just a two-episoder. That's the second time the Sontarans appear. The first time's in the Time Warrior, the first John Pertwee episode of his last season. That's actually one that's really good as well. Sarah Jane Smith's first one. So that was just a 2-part Sontaran Experiment. Then they finished with Revenge of the Cyberman, which isn't very good. So, and there's only 5 stories in that season. So it kind of starts off good, but tails off, but slap bang in the middle is one of the great achievements in science fiction television. And it is, of course, Genesis of the Daleks. So there's been a lot of Dalek stories before this. Evil of the Daleks, Power of the Daleks, in the Patrick Troughton era. The Daleks Master Plan, I think that's William Hartnell one. Then they kind of have a gap and they come back. John Pertwee has a lot of Dalek stories, and they're good. Day of the Daleks was one I didn't mention before when I did the preamble. That opens John Pertwee's 3rd season, and that's a good one. It's pretty funky, like Day of the Daleks. There's also Death to the Daleks with John Pertwee, and that's quite groovy. And then there's Planet of the Daleks. I like that one. Actually, that's a 6-part. It's a good John Pertwee one as well. So, there's quite a lot of them. Pertwee had a good run with 3 good Dalek stories. So anyway, there's always pressure to bring the Dalek back. By this time, the Philip Hinchcliffe, Robert Holmes thing is, working really well. And Terry Nation comes in to write this at this time. Terry Nation isn't writing a lot for Doctor Who because he's working on a series called Survivors. Or he may be putting that into preparation, and he's probably starting to think about Blake 7 as well. But Terry Nation's the creator of the Daleks, so he came back and wrote the story. So this introduces to one of the great figures in Doctor Who's history, and that is the creator, the mad scientist behind the Daleks, and that is Davros. So what I should say about Davros is I love Davros, but later on, when they cast other actors and they had different makeup, but he wasn't very good. He was never better than when he was played by the actor Michael Wisher in Genesis of the Daleks. The makeup and the combination of the actor's delivery, and particularly scenes with Tom Baker, are superb. Yeah? And the central conceit of this is the Doctor ends up back on Skaro, and it's the war between the Thals and the Khalids. Now, up until this point, the Khalids are a race, and then the Davros creates a mutant creature to put in the robot, and that becomes the Daleks, and they basically end up superseding. The Khalid race dies out, and they're in this constant war with the Thals. And it starts off with images of the kind of trenches. It's like a World War I, World War II type imagery. And again, what this explores is fascism, and particularly Nazi Germany. Effectively, Davros and the Khalids are fascists. There's a character in it, his assistant called Nida, and he looks a lot like Norman Tebbit. And Davros obviously references Joseph Mengele. He's experimenting and doing horrible things. There's an incredible scene, and I do think it's an incredible scene. For kids' TV, the quality of the dialogue and the acting, but for TV in general, I think it's right up there, where the doctor is having a conversation with Davros, and he asks him what he would do if he had a virus that he knows could wipe out millions of people, millions of, species or whatever, planet. And, if he had that power, would he press the capsule? And then Davros goes into this little speech with himself, and he, basically goes totally mad and says he would do it. And it's a great scene. And there's an even better scene later where the doctor, the place where the creatures are gestating that will go into the Dalek machine, he's going to blow it up, and he has two wires, and he's going, do I have the right to do this? And Sarah Jane, character's assistant, she's like, of course the Daleks are evil, but then he says, and he puts the moral argument, and it's that idea that good things come from there being the Daleks, because it means other people work together to fight that. And again, it's referencing World War II. After World War II, you get League of Nations, I think, things like NATO, the UN. Loads of countries come together to stop that happening and to stop threats like that. So it's really, really good. It just keeps you going. It's got great pace to it. The acting's great. All the casting's brilliant. I should mention that in this season of Tom Baker, I think in Genesis of the Daleks, at some point, yes, in that season, the character at the start called Harry, God, I've forgotten his name. I'm sorry. But anyway, the actor's Ian Marter. So travelling with the Doctor, there's Sarah Jane, the classic companion, and Harry and Sarah Jane work really well together, and Harry's great. I mean, sometimes it can not be great when there's more than one assistant. I think Harry's last episode is in Terror of the Zygons. So he only did one season and one episode, Ian Marter, the actor, but he's really good, and it works really well with him. So this was my all-time favourite, but I just kind of had to think about it and went for something else. Just one other thing, there's a Peter Capaldi episode a double episode called The Witch is Familiar, which I thought was really good. And that had Davros in it, and the guy playing Davros was good, and the makeup was good. It had an incredible opening, and again, it explores that idea. It's what I call, like, if you could go back in time and kill Hitler. Basically, Capaldi turns up on the planet, his doctor. There's something going on, and a child's scared and is in a minefield or something like that. And Capaldi's doctor says, I'll help you, like, just stay there, what's your name? And the little kid goes, Davros. And I thought that was brilliant. Obviously, he doesn't look mutated or anything, he just looks like a regular child. And it's that thing, what would you do? You go back in time and someone goes to go, what's your name? The person goes, oh, it's Adolf Hitler, or something like that, or Stalin, Joseph Stalin, But it's good that it explores that idea that the future can be changed, a horrible future can be changed, but if you change that, other bad things could happen. Star Trek, or something Star Trek explores really well as well. Okay, so that's Genesis of the Daleks, that's number 2. So recapping, I cheated. There's 11 episodes in there. I cheated. I had Green Death and Curse of Peladon at number 10. Seeds of Doom, number 9. Three Doctors, number 8. City of Death, number 7. The Robots of Death, number 6. That could have leapfrogged into the top 5, maybe 4. But I went for Inferno at 5. Caves of Andromeda, Peter Davison's incredible final story, number 4. Classic Tom Baker as Sherlock Holmes, Talons of Weng Chiang. And number 2, the phenomenal Genesis of the Daleks. So that, for those in the know about Doctor Who, you probably realise what is number 1. And the reason I picked this over Genesis of the Daleks is because it's a 4-parter. A 6-part is great, but it kind of leaves you pretty full. It's always good to want more. So in at number 1 is the greatest Doctor Who episode ever. It's one that again takes its lineage from Hammer Horror and classic horror, and it is 1975's The Pyramids of Mars. Okay, so what about this? It's written by Stephen Harris. I'm not aware what else he wrote. Maybe it's a pseudonym because feels like it's got Robert Holmes all over it. basically, this comes slap bang in the middle of Baker's second season. It's up and running now, and he's got the chemistry with Sarah Jane. It's absolutely superb. Just quickly, I'll mention this is directed by Paddy Russell, and that's actually a lady. So Doctor Who has got long lineage of having females working on it. The theme tune was created by a lady, and Verity Lambert, the original producer. So Paddy Russell does a great job of directing this. Peak viewing figure was 11.7 million. Its average viewing figure was 11. Season 13. So what happens? The Doctor basically is in the TARDIS, and then there's some kind of disturbance, and Sarah Jane gets really scared. She's seen some kind of presence, and I'll just read. I've got some notes here. Whatever it was, I know it was totally malevolent. She's felt like total evil. Now, obviously, one of the things with Davros is like the ultimate foe, but I think the Doctor's foe in this is generally the most scary foe in Doctor Who history, and it is Sutekh the Destroyer. So basically, he's descended from the race of the Sirens, and he's been imprisoned in a pyramid on Mars. So he's taken that idea of lost technology, the idea that the pyramids have been created by an alien race. The power of this guy is there's one point in it where Sarah Jane, I can't remember, I think the character has died. And I think it's the character played by, what's his name? Michael Sheard. Now, you'll know Michael Sheard is the actor because he played Mr. Bronson in Grange Hill. And Sarah's very upset about it, but the Doctor's really cold about it. And Sarah's like, oh, how can you be like that? The Doctor is, Tom Baker's doing his thing where he's like, I'm not like you, I'm not human, I'm an alien. And he goes forward into 1980 and he shows them, Sarah, what Sutekh would do. And I'm sorry, it's referring to my notes. If you want to get off here, it's a desolate planet circling a dead sun, so he kind of opens the TARDIS doors and Earth's just destroyed. Sutekh doesn't want to rule, he just wants to destroy. And when he makes his first appearance, you don't actually see him, but he says, I bring Sutekh's gift of death to all humans, and it's a great cliffhanger. He comes out of the time corridor, out of his sarcophagus, and there's this guy's servant there, and he just kind of strangles him, and the guy, there's loads of smoke comes up, and the guy does a gargling scream, and it's a fantastic cliffhanger. There's a bit later where he has a battle with Tom Baker's Doctor, and he's basically, Tom Baker, one of the things he does great is when he's being tortured, he shows pain on his face really well. And when he gets tortured by Sutekh, he's covered in green light, and I think that's the cliffhanger at the end of episode 3. Because I haven't seen this for a while, so all these I'm going off memory. I mean, they've got program guides, but it would be hard to kind of take all it in. So I'm just checking my notes whether there's something else to say. Not really. I mean, it's got great casting. The mummies are really creepy. They just sort of lumber along. It's set in 1911. Again, it's got that great period detail on the interiors, and then the exteriors are shot in 16mm. And there's a really good balance between location filming and the interiors, but it just works so well. It's the sort of thing that burns in your mind as a kid. You just don't forget those mummies, and for many people, this is the greatest Doctor Who ever of all time. So I'm not sort of going out on a limb here with this. So yeah, that was Pyramids of Mars #1. So I hope that those of you who like Doctor Who, classic Doctor Who, have enjoyed this. Like I say, I may get around to watching them again one day, but it takes a lot of commitment. So we'll see. So thanks very much. Bye.